We made it.
Indeed.
Quite a subtle little opener there, wasn't it?
Absolutely. Subtle. I'm not
Yeah,
sure if
I
you
know,
know
I know. It's
that
like a
word.
brick, a brick in the head. Absolutely. I think the gods of live streaming might be against us here. I don't know for sure if we're definitely live streaming across Twitter and YouTube right now. I've got confirmation, but LinkedIn might be a little bit tricky just now. So we'll just crack on regardless. This will be publicized anyway. It'll be put across multiple platforms. Adefunke Larigo, you are here with us today for Crux Cast 65, and it is an absolute honor to have you on the show. How are you doing?
I am very well, thank you. And thank you for having me on your show. It's very exciting and scary all at the same time. But,
Well,
it's
not
all
at all. Not at all. We're just going to have a lovely chat, and there's nothing scary about it. We're going to talk about you and nothing else for an hour.
so that's exactly why it's scary.
So, before we get into this, some people have seen that you are kind of coming alive on social media. Your presence is growing. You're getting involved, and we were just talking about the accelerator programs and all of these things that you're trying to get involved in. So, social media, I guess, is kind of important to you to get your message out there and get all of that going. So. You may have seen this lady about, but for those of you who don't know, we've got along the bottom, which I'm going to take off because it can be a bit of a distraction. Agency connection. We're going to circle back to this because we're going to go right back to the start. But today, agency connection. What's it all about for people who don't understand it and maybe have never heard about it before?
So, Agency Connection is a service that I set up about a year ago because I am really passionate about helping people to become panel members, particularly people who are, I suppose, consider themselves, discount themselves. Those people are the very people that need to be on panel. People from global majority community, people who think, well, I don't speak well. Basically, I'm thinking if they can take me on panel, then they can take most people on panel. So
that's a lovely way to think about it. Now, again, digging even deeper for those who don't understand even that terminology on the panel. What sort of panel directly? What's the panel for, and what are the kind of panels that you focus on?
So I am a social worker and I work with adoption and fostering agencies. So the panels that I work with are ones within adoption and fostering. And so if somebody wants to become a foster carer or they choose to adopt a child, part of that process is they have to attend what's called a panel, which is it comes at the end of the assessment process when your social worker has already kind of got all the information about you. They've written a great big report saying this person is great and this is why I think they'll make a good parent. But that last kind of is an interview process, I suppose.
Right.
And the social worker would give the report to the panel members and they would read it and kind of make notes and and they will ask questions of the individual or the couple who want to become a foster carer or an adoptive parent, and they was kind of make a recommendation. Yes, we think they're great, we agree, or actually we have an issue with this and that and the other. So that's
right. And the whole point about agency connection, I'm guessing, is that there's a bit of a problem with the whole supply of and resources of panel members, right?
There is a bit of a challenge in terms of the panels they're not very diverse at the moment.
Right.
There is a certain group of people who are overrepresented on panel, and the rest of people are just kind of not as they're not as represented as they can be. So I just found it very it just really bothered me. It really bothered me that there are many people who could be serving on panel, who could be really making a difference to children's lives, and they're not there. So I set up this service to enable such people who might have thought, I'd like to be on panel, but I don't know how to go about it. I don't know where to look. I don't know which agency are looking for people. I'm able to connect such people with agencies who are looking for panel members. So whether that be adoption or whether that be fostering, I set up this service to be able to help people to do that. So,
and I think it's fair to say it's kind of unique, right? There's nothing really like it, is there?
I don't believe so. I haven't come across one yet because I tried to find an agency that would do that for me and I couldn't find one. So that's what led me then to set one up, basically, because I thought, well, there are people crying out saying to me, how do you get on panel? How do you do this? So So I thought, yeah, you can do it, Ade, because there's nobody else doing it. So get on with it.
Outstanding, outstanding, absolutely terrific, absolutely terrific. So we're gonna come back to that and what drove you to this place in just a second. But in usual Crux Cast style, we're going to go back, like with a little time machine. We're going to go back to the very start. And you were born in Nigeria, right?
That's right. Yes.
So which part of Nigeria did you grow up in? What was your kind of history there?
So I grew up in a place called Ibadan, which is in the south of Nigeria. Well, I've only ever lived in the south of Nigeria, really. And when I was maybe when I was like 8 or 9, we moved to Lagos, and then I was in Lagos until I moved to UK. I lived obviously with my family, and
Yeah.
so that's sort of the two places I've lived in Nigeria. But of course, I've visited other parts of Nigeria and other parts of Africa.
Yeah, of course.
Things,
Which part feels like if you were to say which part was home, which part felt like you had the most sort of invested in it? Was it Lagos or?
That's kind of difficult to answer because I was under 10 when I lived in Ibadan, so.
Yeah.
I have these lovely memories of just playing outside with my friends. It was a great big yard and things like that. And then my memory of Lagos, I was a teenager, so that was really fun as well. So yeah, I would say that both. I can't say that I can pick one over the other, but
Right. Okay. Which is lovely because you're not just sunk in one specific area. Memories of Nigeria. Was it a good time growing up? Was it a mixed time growing up? What was your sort of overriding memories of Nigeria?
Mixed. I mean, obviously, it was really, it's really lovely living there. That's where I've known up until I was 16 when I moved to UK. And also, there's lots of things. I almost can't compare Nigeria to UK really, because my life there is completely different to the sort of life I have here. For example, when I was in Nigeria, I went to boarding school.
Right.
So from the age of sort of 10, I was in boarding school until I moved to UK, which was my choice. And by the way, going to boarding school in Nigeria is kind of normal, if you like.
Right. Okay.
Like here in UK, when someone says they're in boarding school, you're like, oh my gosh, like they're obviously super posh or whatever. It's yes, it's a privileged thing, but not in the same sense as it is here. So it's really good memory. But of course, I also lost my mom when I was about 8, so that wasn't so great. But
No.
and then it was after that I moved to Lagos. I moved with my family to Lagos after my mom passed. So I do have mixed memories. I have really happy memories, but I also have quite sad ones as well. So.
Now, so at the age of 16, you moved to the United Kingdom. Now, was that a move that you knew was coming, or was that kind of like, was it a bit of a shock that suddenly we're off next month or whatever? Was that something that was known and discussed?
It was known for quite a while actually, and the process took a lot longer than I thought it would take, because
Right.
I remember on one of because we had to apply for visa and things like that, and I remember one of the terms, I must have come home from school and I didn't go back because we thought that, well, it's going to be a couple of weeks to get a visa and we'll be gone. But then it felt like I was hanging around for like what felt like months. I can't really remember how long it took now, but it felt like it was a really long time. But eventually we got the visa and everybody, we all moved. But just to say that my dad was already in the UK, and so was my brother and my sister actually. So half of my family were already here, and the other half was still back in Nigeria.
Okay. Okay. Cool. So there was a kind of support network waiting for you.
Yeah.
The other side. Very
yes.
good.
But then
because I guess at 16, you've got your friends network set up. You've got your life. You're planning for the future. It must have been. Were you excited about the concept, or were you not best pleased?
I was really excited. I was absolutely looking forward to it. Really, really looking forward to it. And I couldn't wait because I've never been to UK before, so I couldn't really imagine it apart from what I've seen on films. So in my head, it was going to look like all the films that I'd watched, and it was just going to be like that.
Yeah.
Everything's great, everything's shiny, and all of that. And we moved in December, so that was not a great That was not a
Why would
great
you do that
month.
to anyone?
Well, it was just the time when the papers worked, you know. It was like you got your papers and it's like, okay, great, we're
December.
going now. And that was
Welcome
that.
to Birmingham in December.
I literally recall standing at the airport and not having a coat because obviously you don't need a coat in
No,
Nigeria. So I just turned
no.
up with no coat. But my sister she met us at the airport and she gave me a coat. But in between meeting and waiting for the coat, I was kind of like, I remember thinking, I can't even breathe. I was so cold. Have you ever seen that film, Cool Runnings? Have you ever
Yes,
seen it?
yes, I have.
You
Yeah,
know,
yeah,
one second
absolutely.
standing at the airport, and that was how I felt, like literally. Like,
What is this? What is this coat you speak of? What is this heavy clothing you're putting on me? This is ridiculous. Oh, you'll get to know that. You'll get to be a best friend with your coat. Yeah, this will be your best friend.
yes,
So I'm guessing you come from beautiful Lagos, where the weather is beautiful and all the brilliant food and all the vibrancy and the energy, and you arrive in Birmingham. Was that a bit of a culture shock? Is that an understatement, right?
absolutely. It was a complete culture shock. I didn't understand. I felt like I didn't understand what the kids were even saying. And I'm like, these people are meant to be my age. What are they talking about? Everyone seemed really immature to me
Yeah.
because of the type of things they were excited about. And I just thought, what is going on here? I thought it was going to be really cool when I got here, but I didn't feel after a while, after like initially, yes, but then after like 3 weeks or so, I was like, man,
What's
this
going
isn't
on?
this
Yeah.
is not this is not that cool. And the weather was so grey and oh
Yep.
man, it took me 3 years to warm up. I was just so cold all the
3 years
time.
to actually physically acclimatize. That's brilliant.
Honestly, it just took me forever. And then in school, they would make you take your coat off. And that's what I could never understand. I'm like,
No thanks, I'll keep it on.
I wanted to, but they wouldn't let me. They're like, no, you have to take it off. I'm like, they for real. Like, it's really, really freezing. But anyway, I
I
had to
just
take
love the
my
fact that nowadays you appreciate a good 15 degrees. Oh, it's a lovely day. Let's get the windows open.
It is lovely in Birmingham. Thank you very much. I don't know what's happening where you are.
Yeah, it's not. It was lovely yesterday, but not so much today. Not so much today. So you arrive in Birmingham and you start to piece it all together. I guess did you obviously we said boarding school's not a posh school in Nigeria, but did you go to a posh boarding school in the UK or did you go to like regular kind of like high school?
No, I just went to a normal comprehensive, and also because I arrived in December, GCSEs were starting in April.
Right.
So the timing
Excellent.
was kind of really challenging all around, and I think the teachers, I would imagine they assumed, well, she's from Nigeria, it's a developing country, she cannot be that clever. So they sort of
Ooh.
they didn't say this, but it's just looking back on their actions that I can only imagine they must have come to those conclusions because they didn't exactly encourage me to aim for the A star or the B's or whatever. They, all the conversation was around, well, if you do this, coursework, you
See if
should.
you can just scrape by.
Yeah, exactly.
Tell
And
me you absolutely slayed it.
no, because it put me into like the
They
D
put you into
level
the
or
exam system.
so I mean, to be fair, the English was fine. I mean,
Yeah.
we speak English in Nigeria, so that was fine. But it was just the other subjects. They kind of just put me into. I was only ever going to get a D, regardless of even if I got all the questions right.
You
I was
never
never
you
going
weren't
to
in
get
the
more than that.
curriculum. You weren't there. You weren't being
Exactly.
taught how you need to do to pass this.
Indeed. But of course, I didn't know that. So by the time I found out a year later, I was really angry because I thought, oh my gosh, I could have just smashed it. I could have done this work, and they didn't put me through. They put me into the lower group, and so it was too late by then. So I had to redo quite a few of the GCSEs, which always made me quite annoyed. And I think some of that feeds into when I'm working with young people, which I know we're not talking about that at the minute.
No, that's cool. That's all right. No, link it right now if you want. This is your show.
It just makes me sort of think about not underestimating people. Like, just because somebody came from a different country doesn't mean that they're only going to achieve this high. How do you know they can't get that high? Do you know what I mean? Like, don't do that. So it just always makes me aware and always pushed me further whenever I'm working with schools with regard to a young person. I will always advocate for them as much as I can, like just give them a chance and let them do the thing, let them fail, and then we pick it up from there rather than
Yeah.
assuming that they can't do the thing. So yeah, but I wasn't best pleased about that. I got over it
And
now.
when did things start to come together in Birmingham? When did you realize? So you're 16, you arrive, you're getting into, so then you 17, 18. When did things start to did it ever? I'm assuming that things started to feel, because you look really comfortable in Birmingham now and you're a big supporter of Birmingham, but when did you get to the point where you're like, yeah, I can do something here?
I suppose maybe when I started to go to uni, it must have
Right.
been at some point. By the time I went to uni, I would have settled down by then. I would have started to feel comfortable, like, I made friends and things. And to be fair, when I went to college as well, because obviously, as I said, I had to redo my GCSEs, it was all fine. I was still cold, but generally in terms of making friends, I was able to
Who's
do
the
that.
girl in the middle of the class with the like hat and scarf on and like the gloves and all that? It's like March, April.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, that's what. Just call me
that was
cold.
me wearing jumper in June and stuff like that. But yeah,
Yeah,
but
totally.
yeah,
So you did college, you got what you needed. Now, here's an interesting question. I've met people like you before, because this little show is about what seems to be ordinary people doing extraordinary things, but I actually don't think these are ordinary people at all. So I'm actually going to put you in that band of, I know you hate this. I know you hate this kind of stuff, but I actually think you're extraordinary because, so how do I phrase? So I'm going off piste here. You decide to do social work at University of Birmingham.
yeah. The second time round, yes.
Second time round, right? So you decide you're going to do a degree in social work, and you're going to go in and you're going to find out all about how all this works. Once you got into it and once you got into the course, right? Here's my question: did you realize it was going to be about helping people for your entire life? Because you've got an interesting, if you go into your LinkedIn profile, it's basically, I did make a degree in social work, social worker, social worker, social worker, social worker, social worker, set up my own gig because there's a bit of social work that's broken. It's amazing. It's amazing, right? So there are people out there who went to university, did a thing, decided if he liked it, maybe played around with it for a year or so, and then went off and did something else. This social work train just took off from university and just kept going. So my question is, was the need to be a social worker helping people in here first, and you just needed the qualification to get it? Or did you do the qualification because it sounded cool, and then you realized you wanted to do that for life? What question, eh? What question?
I would say that I've probably been doing jobs, or maybe not jobs, but doing things that was on along the lines of working with people and helping people in some way. Because even when I wasn't a social worker, I was doing things like volunteering in some sort of capacity, like food bank or whatever. Yeah, and I think at one point I even considered being a police officer because I thought, oh, that would help people. Because
Yeah.
I always had the thing about I wanted to make a difference in people's lives, but I think it took me a while to figure out which job title I was going to do that under.
So I'm gonna scrape that little onion and see if we can get a few layers of the layers off the onion. I always knew that I wanted to help people. Why? What's the root of that? What's the root of that? What is it about people like you that devote their lives to seeing other people do better? Other people in this world devote their lives to getting rich, or designing software, or doing whatever that they do. There's a special type of person, and we tend to get them on this show, that devote their lives to trying to help people. So where do you think does that come from? A person you knew growing up? Does that come from an experience growing up? Is there something?
I would say that it has a lot to do with experiences that I've had personally, and also, as I mentioned earlier, having lost my mom, I it was it was a really difficult time, and I think there's something around that loss that sort of planned my journey, as it were,
Right.
towards social work. But I just didn't know that at the time. Like it took me quite a while. So when I look back, I'm like, oh yeah, I can see how I can see how that's happened, because I didn't want, I still don't, I don't want children to feel that they don't have a voice. I don't want children to feel neglected. That's not to say that my family neglected me. What I'm trying to say is that not having my mom there, my world just kind of collapsed, and just like, that person that, how it is, your mom is your mom, right? They're always there to think of everything. So then suddenly she wasn't there. So that for me it just really threw me, and yeah, I felt voiceless, I suppose. I felt voiceless, and I felt very vulnerable and just lost for some part of for a few years after she was gone. And so that, I think that feeling always kind of drove me to want to prevent other children feeling in that way. So that's what led me to here, I guess. So.
And what was just fabulous, that little section there. We'll just cut that a little bit out and just send that around the world, shall we? That was just a little perfect 3 minutes. So university, you had this innate feeling that you needed to help people. Then you set into, suddenly, with many people who've got a bit of a calling in their life, suddenly when they start to train in it, it knocks all the fun out of it and all the passion out of it. Did you find that with the degree, or did it actually just wet your whistle even more?
Initially I was very excited, and I it was just really great to learn how to do it. I found it intimidating because, to be honest, I kind of thought, how am I even gonna get through all this jargon they're speaking of? Because I kind of didn't feel like I was in the right place, like I had enough whatever you call it, to get through the course. I was a bit panicked because I'd already been to uni the first time. They put me on to doing the master's, so it was like, oh gosh, and another level of thing. But anyway, some of the lecturers, I remember the first few days, they're talking about all the things we have to do, and I thought, oh gosh, am I gonna survive this? Am I gonna finish this course? Because I feel completely lost, out of my depth here. But anyway, somehow I managed to finish it, and but I think when I started to work in social work, it was really great. I love the whole thing of being able to work with young people. I just love being able to make a difference in their lives and engage with them and really understand them and understand what makes them tick. What can I do to make your life better, kind of thing. I loved all of that.
And now armed with your degree and how it all works, when you start getting into, I think it was Turning Point, your first gig as a trainee social worker.
Yeah,
you start to be able to realize that you've now got the tools to be able to. It's funny, that jargon that you never understood at the start, you probably you probably use it all the time right now, eh? You probably use it.
I have to be mindful not to speak social work.
Yeah, because I'd be lost. I'd be so lost. But you start out as a trainee social worker in 2008, 2006. Was that all it cracked up to be, or was that like a baptism of fire, or was it a little bit scary or fun, or what?
All of that. It was baptism of fire for sure. Even within my training, unfortunately I had one of my supervisors. She was, how can I put this? She could have been more supportive than she was.
Right.
And I
nicely put. Nicely put.
Like when you're on the job, you've not even got your qualification yet, and like during my placement, I remember her sort of saying something like, well, let's go off and go and remove this child. And I was just like freaking out, thinking, what? Like, what? We're gonna just do that? Like, don't we need to sort of do some other intervention or whatever? I don't know. I mean, I know I came late to the conversation, but
this is ridiculous. Yeah,
it just seemed a little bit ridiculous and kind of, and I didn't feel prepared for it. I didn't feel like I had the I don't know, just for her to just bring me up to speed and explain the process and all of that. But it was just kind of like, oh, we're going to go off and do this. And that was most of my placement during that period was pretty much like that. I felt like I was always just trying to catch up because she just didn't take the time to explain and
isn't it wonderful that as long as we can survive them, those horrible experiences, we just reverse them in everything that we do later on in life, right? We get a chance to reverse them. So I had some horrible experiences at work as well. And I made a conscious decision that if I end up with a young person in my care at work, I'm never, ever going to let them experience this. I want to make their journey a far more enriched and beautiful thing than the thing that I got. So we have a chance to say, right, okay, so if I just do the opposite of you, this will be great. Major learning. Thank you very much, horrible person. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I've
But
never,
then, carry on.
I was just going to say that I've not yet had the chance of having a young person, as you said. I would have loved the opportunity to be that supervisor for another social worker who's training. But because of the way my career went, it didn't turn out like that. And of course, I exited. So, so I'm probably not going to get the chance now anyway.
Well, for those of you who are following you, we think this is just the beginning of your story. I think you might have people working with you, young people working with you. I think so. I think this whole thing's just going to grow and grow. So you, why Worcester? What took you to Worcester?
I was trying to find a place where I could start my social work training that had a little bit more nurturing environment. So that's why I went to there. And it was a bit of a trek really from where I live. It was probably like over an hour's journey every day. But I didn't want. I could have done it, closer, but I didn't quite find I don't want to slay any organizations here, but
no, we're not going to do that. We're all sweetness and light here. We're sweetness and light. There just wasn't anything suitable at the time.
Yeah, indeed. But I was prepared to make that journey because I felt like they were more prepared to look after me as a trainee social worker. So that's why I went there, and we considered moving, but then we decided actually no, we'll stay where we are and just commute every day. And so I did that for quite a few years. And after a while, when I had my son, I thought, no, this is a little bit too painful to keep going back and forth. So I changed my job then.
I'm guessing now, when you read what you would, family therapy, psychotherapy, childcare, working with children, motivational intervention, teamwork, social services, child welfare, I'm guessing from a complete layman on the whole thing. I mean, I don't think I'm lucky enough to have never met a social worker, right? In like intervention terms, and I've never actually sat down and had a really good old blether with a social worker, right? So I'm guessing that might be the most ridiculous thing that's ever been said. I'm guessing that there are social workers who specialize in specific things.
Yeah.
So when that whole thing fairly early on from you, the childcare thing, the family therapy thing, the psychotherapy and child protective services, is there right from the start? Was it always about kids?
Yeah.
Always about kids.
Because I was that child.
Yes.
Because I was that child. So there's just something about just not wanting another child to feel the way that I felt. It's just something about not having a voice that I just find that problematic. I just find it problematic, and I think it's really important to help children and young people to find their voice. And sometimes it's difficult because they don't know what their voice is. They don't know,
of course,
how to express it, and sometimes it comes out in anger. And a lot of the times, I think the services can look at the behavior and treat them with the behavior, but it's like they're trying to say something. That's why they're behaving in that way. So we need to kind of be more patient and peel that back and really see what it is
the
they're trying
behavior's
to
a symptom of the problem.
Exactly.
It's not the problem itself. Yeah, in many cases. Question that I've always wanted to ask people that are involved in the kind of work that you immerse yourself in. You've got a bubbly personality. You've got a lovely sense of humor. You must see amazing things in your work that you do. You must have those Fridays where you sit down and go, I actually changed something for the better this week. But you also must have some Fridays where you sit down and go, I've seen some stuff that people shouldn't see. Is that true? Is that you must see the darkest and the lightest of humanity and stuff like that, and you must see desperation, but you also must see joy, and you must see all these things.
Yeah.
I'm guessing the fact that you seem so together and balanced and all of that, and who helps people? Yeah, you seem so together and balanced. Is that gin in that cup? No, it's not. It is water. That'd be telling. But so with all this emotional stuff that you're involved in, I mean, if it was me, every single every single little rucksack that I took off to try and help someone, when I gave it back, there'd still be a quarter of it left on my shoulder, and that would just pile up over time. Who helps you rationalize all this? Is this something you're trained to do? Is this something that you have a process for? But who helps you just decompress and deal with all that?
You know, yeah, a few people. I talk to my husband a lot about things that's happening, because we both work from home at the moment anyway. So, and so yeah, he's often the person that I would, oh, this happened and blah blah blah, but not giving anybody's personal details or anything. And also, I'm really close to my sister, and my sister she's really wise, and she would often help me to separate the. You don't need to deal with that. You don't need to take that on. Actually, let's just stand back a minute and look at this in perspective and whatever, So, and sometimes my husband would do that as well. He'd be like, you don't have to fix everything or whatever. I'm like, I know, but I just, but it's really difficult. It's really hard.
But I'm a fixer. I'm a fixer. That's what I do. I fix things.
It's really hard because there are times where you just sort of like, you just want to cry because you're like, what is going on? Sometimes when I read papers, even for panel, particularly if it's something to do with adoption, and you obviously have to read the whole history of the child from the day they were born. In fact, you read the history of the child before they were born because you're reading their parents' journey, and then you read the child's journey, and you read all the things that's happened to them and things like that. And a lot of the times, to be fair, you can see a pattern being repeated. You can see in the parents' journey how those parents became the way they are because something happened in their life and that sort of thing. And it can be really, really sad. And there are times when I'm reading stuff for panel that I'm like, oh, I can't even read it.
No.
And I would have to, of course I have to read it, but I'll have to kind of I can't, that bit there, I need to just skip over that because it's too traumatic. So I'll read other bits that helps me to understand what's happening, but there's just some of the detail you almost can't deal with because it's so painful and so sad, but you need to understand the whole thing in order for you to help make a recommendation when you get to panel. So you still got to somehow find something, find a way to make sure that you're up to speed with what's going on in the case and stuff. So, but yeah, it can be pretty tough, but I'm sure there are people who are worse off. There are social workers who deal with far worse things day in, day out than I've experienced. But yeah, social work. What I wish that as part of social work you had some sort of therapy session that you could access a bit more frequently. Well, it doesn't come with the job. It should do.
Is it not? Yeah, you would think, my goodness, these people, if anyone needs support and therapy and decompression and tools and mechanisms to process things, it's probably social workers, right?
Yeah, they give you, they call it supervision, but your manager is also dealing with their own thing, and so it's like, well, who's managing, who's helping who, really? I mean, of course, I'm not suggesting that managers don't help. What I'm saying is the supervision to help you piece out what you need to do in the case is one thing, but the emotional bit where you kind of think, okay, I'm going to offload that bit to somebody and they help me manage it, and then I can go off home and sleep or whatever. That doesn't happen. So some services are better where they offer support to their workers, but generally you don't get, every 3 weeks you can go have a therapy session and offload. No, it doesn't happen.
Doesn't work. Crikey. My goodness me. So there are many social workers who did the degree, became a trainee social worker, did some work with councils, did some work with places like Five Rivers Childcare, and went on to just finish their lives and retire, having worked for councils and childcare organisations. Then there are people who decide, I want to fix this broken thing. There's a pattern forming here, right? There's a pattern forming here. I want to fix something that's broken. So you set up on your own, 2016 ATL social work. So what was that your first foray into trying to do it yourself?
Yes, yeah. And I still have that service going. So when I sit on panels, I'm still doing it as a solopreneur, if you like, doing that. But that's what then led me into observing that actually panels look a certain way, and they shouldn't look like that, because actually all the children that we're looking after in the care system don't look the same. So therefore the panel shouldn't shouldn't be looking the same, sort of like 75-80% of it shouldn't look how it looks. We should be more, there should be more representation.
A proper representation of how this country looks, which is certainly not all one way, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Walk down the street, and it's just a brilliant sort of smorgasbord of different nationalities, cultures, and origins, right?
Absolutely. And the children who are in the care system, children who have been adopted or children who have been fostered, obviously are from more different, walks of life, or just different skin color and background and ability and all of that. So for me, that's what panel should reflect, because panel is helping to make a decision about those who look after those children. So I just have a bit of a problem with that lack of diversity.
So you just decided, I'll just sit around and see if this gets any better. No, you didn't. No, you didn't. Not at all.
I did sit for a while, and I tried to encourage the services where I was working with. Well, I'm still working with a lot of them. I tried to encourage them to just to understand, well, what is the problem with the lack of diversity? Why is it difficult and all of that? And I just didn't feel like I was getting the kind of response that I wanted. I wanted to hear, we're finding it difficult because of A, B, and C, or whatever, and this is how we can fix it. So we're working on it or whatever. But it just kind of wasn't really happening. And I'm not saying that every service was like that, but it's just not a large number of them seem to be fine with, well, we got these people who are on our panel and we're kind of fine with that, really. So for me, that wasn't okay. So, and as I said, I try to find a service, an agency that would help me to become a panel member, and I couldn't find that service. And people would ask me, how do you become a panel member? I'll have fellow social workers would often ask me, how do you go about it? So I was already helping people even before I had the agency. I was connecting people with agencies and things like that, because if somebody say to me, I think, oh yeah, they've got really good skills, and they look different, they have a different characteristic to who's already on panel, I would often make that link. But actually, I felt like that's just that I can do that, but that would just, it's not going to make that much. That's going to be a drop in the ocean. And I wanted to I wanted it to be a big change. I wanted to make a big impact in terms of diversifying panel. I just think it's just so important, So I figured the only way to do it is to have an agency where people can come and I can say, okay, you're looking for a panel member. Here is somebody who's really good. Here's a CV, blah, 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 and make the connection, and off we go, live happily ever after. In theory.
You formed Agency Connection, as it says down below. Please go and check it out. Please check out Adefunke's profile. Bespoke recruitment package for fostering and adoption panels, matching individuals that hold diverse skills and bring valuable experience with requirements that meet fostering and adoption panels, fostering, train and coach panel members, consultancy and review of central list composition, mentorship for panel members.
That's a mouthful, goodness.
It was a mouthful. I think you wrote it.
You wrote all that.
I think you wrote it. So this little thing, this little connector and fixer didn't exist, and you made it up. I think there's something fantastic in that. How many? So you set it up in April 21.
Yeah.
How many specific kind of cases do you think you've handled or been involved with in a year? Just over a year.
Oh gosh, I don't know how many people I've spoken to. I've spoken to quite a lot of people. I can't put a number on that. I don't know, because not everybody who comes to make an inquiry actually becomes a panel member. Not because they can't, it's just that sometimes people don't follow through with the stuff that they need to do, put their CV together or whatever it is and all that.
Human nature.
Exactly. And there are so many people who are capable. We can't all be foster carers or adopters, but there are definitely far more people who can be panel members for sure. And with the agencies, I'm currently working with 31 adoption agencies across UK. So they are, because I think I started that in December 2021, and I'm still working with the agencies and just helping them with finding the right people for panels, and it just it takes a bit of time, because you got to interview people and read CVs and all that kind of stuff. And
31. Do you do any work north of the border? Because I think there's probably, just like everything north of the border in Scotland, there's a slightly different structure for how things work.
Yeah.
So do you do any work in Scotland?
Not yet, but I'm
No,
always open to it. I
you're
would love
always open
to.
to it.
Well,
Yeah,
absolutely, and I would love to understand actually the system in Scotland, because I don't feel like I do. So I've recently met somebody on LinkedIn who's in Scotland, so she can probably
because
help
you
me
can
to understand that.
you can bet your bottom dollar on it that the same issues exist. The same issues, just with different words and different documents, right? So let's just take a little breather on agency connection, because we'll come back to it and finish off on it. You're married with a couple of lovely kids.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
I've got a superhero husband who puts up with me.
And what is hubby's profession?
My husband is in IT, education IT. That's where he works, and he likes to
Fantastic.
take you around with computer stuff, and which I don't
It's
understand.
not what you called him yesterday. She called
I'm
him an
live.
IT geek. She called him an IT geek yesterday. But
He
it
knows
was
I called him that.
in a loving way, in a loving way. And two lovely kids that are what, 14, 10?
Yes, my daughter is 10 years old and my son's 14. My 14-year-old who looks like he's a, like he's a man.
Yeah. And are you getting any cheek, any talking back yet? Is any of that starting?
To be
He
fair,
tries.
he's a good boy. Yeah, and
Yeah.
both of my children are, they're really. You know what it is? You know how lots of people will say to you, "Oh gosh, your son is so polite, so this and that." When I speak to his teachers, they can't stop singing his praises. And the other day when we had parents' evening, and the teachers kept saying how brilliant he is, I was like, "Are you sure you got the right kid?"
You should, yeah. Have you got the names mixed up here?
Because
Yeah.
like, he kind of gives us attitude at home, but when he's out, he's really really polite. And I'm going to tell you this funny story. So one day I was outside the house, and this man was walking down the road, and he was like, excuse me," and I was like, "Oh no, what's he want? I don't know him." He goes, are you Christian's mom?" And I was like, "Oh yeah," and I started to sort of like, what's happened, what's he
What's
done? And
happening? Yeah. What's going on?
but actually, when he got to me, he all he wanted to tell me was how amazing my son is. He's like, he's really polite. He's a really good kid and all
Be
that.
like, oh, for goodness sake, enough.
I was
That's
like, oh,
brilliant.
phew, thank goodness he was saying that. Like, what's he going to say to me?
Testament to good parenting. Well done, well done. And he's obviously a super guy. So what, when you're not doing all of this, and we're gonna finish off on what to take away from agency connection and what's the kind of what's the message there. What keeps you sane? You've been locked in the house for 2.5 years. We've all been in lockdown. What keeps you sane? What keeps you smiling? Because you've got a nice way about you. You've got a lovely sense of humor. We've all gone through tough times. So what was your kind of thing to try and stay sane through all of this?
Well, throughout the lockdown.
Yeah. What did you put your time into, and what did you do to try and keep
I
keep
suppose
going?
I suppose I had this little project, didn't I? To
Yeah.
kind of to that took my attention, I suppose. I was brewing it in 2020.
Right.
And then by 2021, I was like, okay, that's it. We're done. We need to just get going with this baby. Just give birth to it already, and
Just get it going.
let's just get cracking. So that helped. But also it was, part of the lockdown was really great because it was obviously it's the first time that I'm home with my husband and my children, all of us during the day. So part of that was great. I mean, there were times and I'm like, okay, I need a bit of space now. But generally, it was
Yeah.
good having things like going for a walk every day and, stuff that we would normally do and baking together and that sort of stuff. So those parts were lovely. Playing games in the evening. We had like games night and we have another night where we'll do something else. And so, so that was really lovely. But of course, is unrealistic because lockdown is unrealistic because,
No.
no one does that because that just doesn't happen, does it? And I wouldn't say that I suppose maybe sometimes I think, gosh, when we were in lockdown, I remember thinking, gosh, we mustn't rush back when we go back to normality. We mustn't fill all our days with running here, doing this and doing that and the other. But I don't know what's
We've all
happened.
forgotten about that, haven't we? Yeah, we've all forgotten about that because you're a runner as well. Literally a runner, aren't you? You like to put the running shoes on and go out and run a couple of miles and clear your head. That's a thing.
I do. I need to do that. I need to because it helps me stay sane. There's a lot goes on in my day that I need to do something physical first then. and then I can kind of manage
Is
the
that
rest
when
of the
you?
day.
Is that when you need? Are you wake up in the morning, go out and run?
Yeah, yes,
Wow,
definitely.
before breakfast.
Oh, breakfast! Goodness, what's that? No.
What's breakfast? What's breakfast? Breakfast is something at lunchtime.
Yes, I
But you
eat
go out and
around
you go out and
8.
run. Wow.
I have to run first thing. Then I eat around 11:30 or something like that. So that's when I eat. So even if I don't run, I will still have to do that. But generally, I do need the run anyway. I just like to get up. I like to just get up and go around 6:37. I like to just go do that. And then by the time I'm coming back, the kids, because the thing is, if I don't go before the kids, I find it hard to go
Yep.
because there's always something like, oh, my PE kit or my whatever, all these things that they.
And your running time's just eating up with stuff
With
to
PE
do.
kits and,
And yeah,
sandwich or whatever it was and all that,
yeah,
so.
yeah.
So yeah, I like to go. So at least I'm dressed, ready to go when they get up. So it's there's less things to prevent me from getting out of the door. So that's how
What
I
is relaxing time for you? What is relaxing when
relax.
you're at your most chilled?
When I'm hanging out with my family, when I'm with my girlfriends, and we're just chilling out, listening to music, go to movies, just talking. I love chatting, just catching up
Yeah.
with my. I love a good time with my girlfriends. I really do, and going to the spa with my sister. Oh man, awesome!
Ooh, going to the spa with your sister.
Yeah, yeah, love it,
Nice.
love it.
Nice.
I'm looking forward to that. We usually do at least one spa a year,
Right.
around her birthday. Sometimes
So
we
it's a
go more
big
than
deal.
that. Yeah, I love spending time with her because she's just such a great person, and she's a really good friend. So yeah, those are the kind of things that I like to bake as well. That helps me to relax. Making
What's your specialism at the old baking? Are you a cakes or biscuits person, or do
cake.
you do the big tiered things?
Yeah, so
Oh
my
man.
birthday was 2 weeks. Is it 2 weeks ago? 7th of June was my birthday, and I was made a birthday cake, but my mother-in-law made me birthday cake, but I didn't quite eat it in time, and it was cream and
Oh
strawberries and stuff. So you
yeah,
sort of,
yeah, yeah.
anyway, it went off and stuff. So elderflower cake is one of my favorite cakes. So I made elderflower cake, and carrot cake is another thing that I love to bake as well. So I just love that.
We're all going round to yours for a slice of that carrot cake. Absolutely sounds fantastic. With Agency Connection, it's doing great work, right? It's doing great work. It's clearing paths that weren't there before or weren't seen before. It's connecting people together. It's shining a light on something that needs a light shone in it. Where does it go from here?
Well, that's a good question. I've been trying to figure that out, and honestly, every day I feel like I'm adding more things to it that I want to do with it. So first of all, I'm going to say this: I want to do a podcast.
Yes, that's how we met. That's how we
So
met.
I feel like it's really important to have to have the podcast so we can talk more around panel, talk more around what the panel does, and showcase some people who are already on panel, and maybe open up a bit of a window around panel, because I feel like the world thinks panel is this really secretive thing, and we all whisper in the dark and whatever. it's not, it's not like there's normal people on it. So
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think it would be good to be able to showcase some of the things that goes on. Of course, it doesn't mean that I'm gonna kind of disclose everything or the
No,
discussions or anything, but it would be good for people to maybe meet certain people, different types of people who are panel members, and talk, and maybe share some panel stories, some funny things that happens on panels, or some not so great things, and how to
yeah, yeah,
prepare
yeah.
people and that sort of thing. I think it would be good to have some sort of podcast around all of that. So
I
that is
think
definitely.
we all want to hear that or see it, because you could do it here. You could do it like this. This is easy. And you also, when you finish this and you download it, you get the audio stream that you can put on your Apple, Spotify podcast. You can distribute this across. We're broadcasting right now onto YouTube and Twitter easily. You just no problem.
Oh,
I
I'm
think I think
famous.
I think our link to LinkedIn broke, but don't worry about that. We'll send it out so that people can get a hold of it on LinkedIn as well. That's absolutely fine. These things happen. We just have to roll with the punches. But the fact is, this is a brilliant way of doing it, because you get the audio recording and you get all of that, so you can put it on multiple channels. I
Amazing.
think what would be if you could look us all square in the eye and say, "This is what I need you to do help this situation? What can we do? What can all of us do?
Well, you can, if you know anybody who's interested in becoming a panel member, please direct them to me so they can, so I can hook them up, as it were, with the agency. And
But that's for the
also,
people that even know what it is, right? Because there's lots of people that would be great panel members that don't even know what it is, right?
but even before we get to the panel thing, there are people who perhaps who have been thinking about fostering or been thinking about adoption, and they've not done anything about it, and they've thought about it for years and years. Those people should also do something and stop thinking. Make an inquiry, find out from your local authority or whatever agency that your friends are already connected with. Find out, from them, have a conversation with them, because it's probably isn't not as scary as you think it is. But if you just keep thinking and don't do anything, then you're not going to help anyone, are you? So please.
Which seems to have been the motto for your life. If you just keep thinking and don't do anything, you're not going to help anyone. What a great title for your upcoming blog series. Fantastic. We're just going to close on a question that I ask everyone in this show. We've had the stuffing knocked out of us. Now, you have done the best as a parent to make sure that your kids and that your husband and that your family network and all of that are looked after through lockdown. As we're coming out of this now, and there's some sense of, I wouldn't say normality at all, coming back to life, that forget normality. There's a new way of working, right? As we're coming out of this, what are your hopes for the future moving forward? What would you like to see, apart from the obvious thing about what you're doing with Agency Connection? What would you like to see get a bit better in the world and change a bit more in the world?
Do you know what I've been noticing? That I feel like I'm noticing that more people are wanting to maybe set up, do their own thing. Maybe, I don't know, it's a business or is there some sort of skill they've got, but they're not using it. And it would be good for, it kind of ties into what I just said. Stop thinking, do. And I think that I also notice that there's lots of people who are generous, and the world needs more generous people that can help other people, that can bless other people. And I just wish that there'll be more people who will ask for help with what they need, so that people can, there'll be somebody out there that can help you whatever it is you need. But if you don't say I need this thing, or I'm looking for this thing, then nobody knows you need it, so they're not going to give it to you either. So so two things: people who can bless others. Yeah, please continue with that, do more of it. I wish I have even more things that I could more capacity to help more people, and I've learned to ask for help. And that's why I'm saying that thing, because actually before I used to be a bit what is the word, maybe it's not pride, but I didn't want to look vulnerable, so I wouldn't ask for help. But actually it's a really good thing to do, because if you don't ask, then you're not going to get it, are you? So so yeah. That's
life lessons. Pearl's been dropped here. Pearl's been dropped for all of us here. Listen, that's the best part of an hour gone. Can you believe that?
Oh my gosh, yeah, it is.
I know. Best part of an hour absolutely gone. It's just incredible. You talk a lot, you know that.
I do talk a lot. That's no news to me.
That's why she's like, she's a great talker. Let's get her on the show. She's got lots of cool stuff to say. Fantastic. Adefunke, it's been an absolute pleasure to meet you. I don't think this is the last time we're going to see you. As I say, I think the LinkedIn link broke. That's why we're not getting any chats here. But don't worry. We will use this across multiple channels and get it out to people. I'm going to repost it on LinkedIn, put this link to the YouTube clip so that we can start to share it about there. And then I'll get it over to you and you can put it on wherever you need to, wherever you need to do it. Let's stay in touch. Thank you so much for being our guest on Crux Cast 65. And we will absolutely see you again.
Thank you so much, Eric. It's been amazing talking to you.
Yeah, likewise. See you soon. Bye-bye.